Mihi, thank you so much for joining me on the Salon Owners Collective podcast. Pleased to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here, Larissa. It is a pleasure.
Well, let's start with who are you, Mihi? Where are you in the world? What do you do? How did you get to be doing it?
So my name is Mihi Sorensen. I am a daughter, a friend, a partner, a dog mum. I live in Hawke's Bay, and I guess my big thing right now is my podcast. I have a podcast called Empower with Mihi. And that was inspired largely from my passion, absolute passion to empower women and to, just encourage women to discover the voice that is already within them and offer up tools and tricks and advice and whatever else comes with that to just make life a little bit easier and feel better about ourselves when we wake up in the morning and go about whatever happens in our day. So that's kind of like my big passion project, and that is the thing that I care about a lot in this world. Otherwise, I still work a 9 to 5. So that's kind of my side hustle. The podcast is the side hustle. I work in project management. I previously was a lawyer, and that career burnt me out. So that's why I have moved into doing project management, which is kind of surprisingly a little bit less intense. And it means that I have the energy to be able to do the things that I really care about on the side as well. So that's kind of everything that I do. Yeah, that's a little bit of me.
I love it. I think one of the things that the hair and beauty business owner industry really relate to is kind of like the hustle and the burnout. Running a business is I like to say we're trying to do all the things. We're
Yes.
a mum, we're a partner, we also have a dog, and we have 8 team members, 300 clients, a rent to pay, home, and the business. And I see so many people not living their best life, and they're constantly on the brink of burnout, really. And so this kind of tussle forward and forwards and backwards around, I love being in business. Actually, I hate being in business and I want to sell it tomorrow. And so I really love, I'm just going to quote you actually, like how to handle bad days like a bad bitch. And I was like, I got to talk to this girl and get her to help us with this, because I feel like this is the life we're living constantly. So give us some intel and some insight into handling bad days.
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like I have this podcast, this self-help, like self-development, empowering women podcast, and a platform. And I've been thinking a lot about how the message is always optimistic and positive, and I want to make people feel inspired when they start their day. And then after a little while, I realized that while that is everything that I am, it is totally normal and totally common to have a really shitty day. And because I was like, no, I've got this positive, optimistic platform, like I'm not going to bring that negative energy into the space. Actually, everyone often feels that way. And because I think just in general, when you are a woman, when you are doing a lot of things and you've got a lot of things on your plate and you're trying to balance everything at one time, the last thing that you feel like doing is taking a step back and acknowledging that actually I'm having a really difficult time right now, because you feel like you don't have enough time to be able to take that step back and think about it. And so you just keep carrying on and doing your best, and maybe you're dropping a few plates, but it doesn't matter because you're trying to keep everything else afloat. Actually, something that we all need to be better at doing is acknowledging that if I am having a shitty day, that's okay and that's normal, and I'm allowed to have a shitty day, but I'm better off talking to someone about it or finding tools that help me work through it instead of suppressing it and pretending like it doesn't happen, and just telling everyone that I'm fine when I'm not. So that's sort of what inspired the how to handle bad days like a bad bitch. And that's an episode that I have on my podcast. And it was specifically about, and I know many will relate to this, specifically about a day that I had. I woke up and it was a very busy work day. I was in Wellington for work and I had a lot going on. I had a big presentation that I had to do on that day with my full team. And I that started maybe at, like, I don't know, 9:30 in the morning. And so I had half an hour before I had to be in the office to do that presentation. I live in Hawke's Bay, so like I don't have many shops around here and I needed to get a new dress. So I stopped by the shops on my way into the office and I was trying on dresses, nothing fit and nothing looked right. And I was on a very set time schedule. So I started that day already feeling stressed out about my work situation, and then decided I'm going to try and find a dress because I don't have much time. Tried to find a dress, didn't work, had that experience in the changing room when you're sitting there like staring at yourself in the mirror like, what is wrong with me? I hate myself. Why does nothing fit me? And so I let that go, whatever, fine. And then I went to the office, and at the same time as I was walking to the office, I received some photos from a shoot that I had done for the podcast. And so I was looking through them to approve which ones I wanted and which ones I didn't. And I sent them through to my partner, who, with all the best intentions, responded and said, "Oh, that's really random. You're doing something really funny with your hand and like half of these photos." And for me, after having just had a breakdown in the changing room and I'm just about to do this really big presentation, I'm really stressed out about it. And then he said, it's not even critical. He just had an observation about something that I was doing in this shoot. And it just sent me over the edge. And that was just, became the worst day ever. And I did the presentation and it was fine, but I was heightened for the rest of the day. And now I can look back on it and be like, I probably shouldn't have gone to the dress. Like, I shouldn't have gone to try the dresses on in the first place. I didn't have the time, but I was trying to do everything. And I probably shouldn't have tried looking through hundreds of photos and then sent them to my partner 10 minutes before I did a presentation. But again, I was trying to get everything done. And I ended up like a blubbery mess. And that was on me because I was trying to do everything all in one time and trying to manage everything and trying to be on top of my shit. Actually, I needed to just take a step back in that moment and appreciate that we can't do everything all the time. And you know what? The world was not going to end if I had waited until the end of the day to go and try on a dress, or waited until the end of the day to start looking through those photos. So it's really just a reminder. Sometimes we do that. Sometimes we try to do a little bit too much and we burn ourselves out unintentionally, and that's okay. Let's acknowledge it, but let's make sure we don't do that again in the future.
I feel like I've lived this day many times
Yes.
over.
Yes.
Totally. I don't know why we do it to ourselves, but needs must. I think once you're up and you're slightly heightened, you just got to keep going, right? And then just keep running.
Yeah, we are our own worst enemy sometimes. And yeah, it's just good that we acknowledge it. We don't have to live in that feeling, but it's just really good to be aware of it so that we can try not to put ourselves in that same place mentally in the future. It will happen, but like, be aware of it, basically.
For sure. It makes me think about setting some boundaries for ourselves, like don't do things. I really love that you mentioned, like, how do we set boundaries for ourselves to take care of ourselves, but without letting down or hurting other people? I feel like I observe this with the salon business owners I work with. Biggest balance is like, how do I protect myself or hold myself and care for myself and not let myself be taken over by the team. Now, the team don't know the struggle that the business owner has. So how do we hold our own boundaries without disrupting the relationship or the commitment or the responsibility we have with others, and even loved ones, partners, children. Like there's a tussle constantly, I feel like, between holding ourselves and protecting ourselves and caring for ourselves and being who we need to be to serve others. What are your thoughts around that?
Mm. It's really interesting because just as you were talking, I actually thought of my mum, who is a physio and has run her own practice for like 20 years or something. And because for the most part, I have a business, but I'm very much like self-employed and it's just me. And otherwise, I am employed like a normal employee in any other business. We often have conversations about the struggles that she has as an employer versus my struggles as an employee. And often she has, I mean, my mum is a workaholic, so am I. It's very normal, I think, for any business owner to be a workaholic, but she's definitely acknowledged that she works too much at home because she has to, because that's how the business keeps running. And then she goes to work and she feels burnt out when she's at work. And there's also staff members that she needs to worry about. Whereas when you're an employee, you just go to work, you do your thing, and you leave.
Yeah.
And even for her, it's something that she really struggles with because it's almost like you feel like no one understands how you're feeling, and you feel like you it's not like you can speak to your colleagues at work if you are the boss and all of your employees are looking to you for guidance. You can't really go to them for things that aren't relevant to the work that they're doing. And I think that's something that I have seen business owners have a real difficulty with, and that they feel like they need to speak to someone about the issues that they're facing. A lot of the time it's HR as well, and I'm just speaking generally now. A lot of HR issues don't know who to go to, and so end up carrying it all with themselves, and then come home and they're worrying about it, then go to work and they're worrying about it, and they're still doing the work, but they're worrying about all of these things. And that, I think, is where I think boundaries in general come, you need to have like a level of self-awareness to know what boundaries you need. And the first thing you need to ask yourself is, what is it that I'm actually struggling with? And what are the things that are taking up my headspace, that I'm
Mm.
just completely consumed with, that I feel like I can't speak to anyone about, or that I feel like I'm stuck with? And then figure out what you do with that. So maybe, I don't know, maybe it's a matter of finding a mentor, maybe it's going to another business owner and having this conversation with them so that you start building more of a community, or just having someone to soundboard off. Because I feel sad when I see business owners who are so consumed with anything that's going on at work that they never turn their phones off, always answering emails, feeling guilty if they're not doing that, even though oftentimes they will also be the ones encouraging their employees, don't check your phone after this time. I don't want you working outside of the hours that you're being paid to work. Meanwhile, it's about making sure that you're also setting a good example.
Yeah, that is true. I really liked your first suggestion of like a little bit of self-observation,
Totally.
like noticing, okay, I'm in a bit of a whirlwind here, or my mind can't let go of this challenge, like you say, often HR, and just
Mm,
observing yourself in that mix, or what it is that you need first. I kind of think it's like um, put your own seatbelt on first, or their own mask on first
yes.
before you do the kid, right? Of course, your natural instinct is fix the kid, but if you're not there to fix the kid, then what help are you? So self observing what you need first, and then you're a stronger version to go in and deal with the actual challenge. Would you agree?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And it's funny because I talk a lot about self-care and making sure that you're good before everyone else is, because then you can bring the best version of yourself and
Well,
everyone else gets to benefit from that. But often I think
harder to do.
you feel like you're being a little bit selfish by
Mhm.
putting, because it feels like, why would I want to be putting myself first? That doesn't feels counterintuitive to what we're supposed to be doing. But actually, if you do that, If you are a better version of yourself, you become a better manager, you become a better boss, you become a better friend and a better partner and a better parent, and every other part of your life will start improving if you figure out how to help yourself first.
For sure. Okay, so how are we going to give ourselves a break and develop some good, healthy rest habits? Is kind of what you're saying, right? Let's create some habits for ourselves that are sustainable and get us out of the whirlwind.
Yeah, I mean, again, I would start with being really honest with yourself, having an uncomfortable conversation with yourself, being like, what are the really poor self-sabotaging habits that I have that are making my life harder that I need to do something about? Because you can read all the books and you can buy all of the self-reflection journals and you can do all of that stuff, but if you aren't fully conscious of the things that are really impacting you, then none of it's going to mean anything. Nothing's going to change. You're not actually going to be able to have a meaningful difference in the way that you work and in your home life as well and everything. So first thing you want to do is just really get uncomfortable and be honest with yourself. Once you've done that, then depending on what the issue is, you start looking for your tools. So maybe your problem is that, and this is a problem for all of us, that you spend too much time on your phone, either looking at emails or doing research, because I know how obsessed I get trying to look up the next product that's going to be helpful for my audience, or what are the sorts of things that I want to talk about. And there's never enough hours in the day to do all of the things that you want to do if you are like deep in that research space, you're trying to figure out what to add to the business. So you've got to set boundaries around that. You need to be clear about how many hours you want to commit to the business and hold yourself accountable to that. And maybe you're willing to go well over 80 hours a week. Maybe that's what you're willing to do, but understand that if you're doing that, there's going to be a sacrifice in another part of your life. And you need to have an honest conversation again with yourself about whether you're willing to do that. If you're willing to do that, you need to have a conversation with the other important people in your life so that they understand. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of honesty and uncomfortable conversations to be had.
And getting conscious with yourself. Because I
Yeah.
remember a time where I said yes to every opportunity because it was so
Yes.
exciting and fun to do, and didn't really have a good awareness of like actually what I could actually achieve in any given week. And it wasn't until
Mm.
I started to think about my business on a longer term scale that I realized I'm not in a rush. Like if I don't do it this week, it'll be okay. No one will die. And I run it through the no, will anyone die
Yes.
meter now? If I don't do
Yes.
this now, will anyone die? No. Right. I'll do it next week.
Yeah. Yeah.
Again,
It's
it's just
funny.
having that conscious, honest conversation.
Yeah. And it's funny that you say that, because I was having a conversation with someone yesterday just in my normal job, in my 9 to 5, and it was around lunchtime and I had just had a shower, because I'm really lucky. I work from home, and so it's been a lot easier to create more balance when you work from home and you have the option to work remote. And I just had a shower at lunchtime. I just washed my hair, which is like a whole situation. And she had said to me, "Oh, where have you been? Have you been swimming or something?" I said, "No, no, 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 no. I just had a shower." And she was like, "I love that you can just do that and that you feel comfortable to do that." In saying that, I'm lucky to have a manager that is all for us doing that as long as the work gets done. But I said to her, like, it's really important that I take time out to do the right things for myself and that I'm able to do that and that I work somewhere where I am given that opportunity. And she said, all I want to do is walk my dog at lunchtime, but I don't know if I'm allowed to do that. And I get worried that I'll miss something. And I said to her, no one's gonna die. No one's gonna die. Like, I used to work in a space where someone could potentially die. And so that was a different time. And I couldn't say that. But if we're really honest about what we're doing, somebody else's deadline, if there's not a life on the line, like, you need to put yourself first. It's not worth losing your mind over it. in order to meet someone else's deadline. You can push things out for reasonable cause, obviously,
Sure,
but you
for sure.
just need to be sure about what it is that you're willing to do and how far you're willing to overextend yourself. And actually, you're allowed to take your dog for a 30-minute walk in the middle of the day if you're working from home. And that's okay. And you need to just be okay with being uncomfortable about it for a little bit until
Mhm.
it becomes normal.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I remember traveling to London years ago. I had to go and I went to receive a business award. It was super
Mm,
exciting. And I rushed back. I don't know, how long does it take to fly back from London? 36 hours by the time you
yeah.
stop off and you do all the things. I
Yeah.
flew back to get back for a 9 o'clock, Thursday, 9 o'clock appointment for my client. Honestly, I arrived
Mm,
on the midnight red eye, arrived at midnight after 36 hours flying. I got up in the morning to turn up for her 9 o'clock hair appointment because I knew she'd be upset if she couldn't come Thursday and she needed to come Friday. And that's when I caught myself and I was like, what the actual heck?
yeah.
Change here. Like, no, it's hair at the end of the day. Like, I know it's
Yes.
important to her, but it's like it's hair, grows out of her head. So yeah, a little bit of a sanity check is always useful.
Very much so. Yeah.
um, all right. What would you say, given all of the things that you talk about and think about on your podcast, what would you say is a quote or a mantra that sort of feels relevant on today's topic?
I mean, I love Michelle Obama. She is everything to me. So I guess one of her quotes, which is very simple, it is, your voice is your power, use it. And that's kind of just like life mantra. I have many. Um, and it's literally true for me because I have a podcast, but also I think there's a lot of depth to that, and that yes, your voice is your power. I am all about us using it in spaces where we don't necessarily feel comfortable, especially when we're feeling that imposter syndrome. But also, we need to be using it with ourselves as well. We need to be able to have honest conversations with ourselves, and we need to listen.
Mhm.
Otherwise, we just get caught in the chaos that is life, and life is always going to be chaotic, but we need to be able to return to ourselves, and not in like a woo woo way.
Mhm.
I don't like getting caught up in this idea of everything being, manifestation and like up in the sky and a little bit spiritual. I'm all about that. But I think sometimes it's easy to discount these conversations because it feels too woo woo. Actually, all you need to do is be honest with yourself and take yourself seriously and know that no one knows you as well as you know you.
Yeah. Yeah. Or the goal should be that we know ourselves better than anybody else. It
Absolutely. Yeah.
case at some parts and stages of our life, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. What is a book or a podcast or something that you've engaged with recently that you think we should all get our hands on?
I have many. I'm super obsessed with audiobooks at the moment. So I have a few. I have come with a few recommendations. One is Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. That book is specifically about negotiation skills. I think it's a really helpful book to have, and I think it's incredibly important for anyone in business, especially for women in business, because I know how uncomfortable negotiation is naturally, especially if you are a people pleaser. So, any little skills that you can pick up that you can incorporate into every day, because you're constantly negotiating if you have a business to any degree, sole trader all the way up to a company, constantly negotiating. So yeah, highly recommend that one first.
Mhm.
Then I have The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy, which is a little bit controversial in some ways, but I like the reminder that you don't have to be doing big things all the time to move the needle. Actually, it's about compounding all of the little daily things that we do in terms of like waking up at, and I'm not saying everyone needs to wake up at 5, but if you wake up at 5 instead of waking up at 5:30, that gives you an extra 30 minutes every day. 30 minutes every day for the whole year gives you a whole lot more time than what you would have had otherwise. So it's a good reminder just to make use of every minute that you have. And that is not just to be productive, that is also to make use of every minute that you have to rest and be off your phone and disengaged from the world, because that is just as important as your productive time. And then my last book recommendation is The Mountain Is You by Brianna Wiest. That is all about unlearning your self-sabotaging behaviors and habits. And if you feel like you don't have any, I promise you do. We all do. So we should all read the book. I'm actually only about halfway through it at the moment, but it has been really interesting. And I find there is a lot of satisfaction in listening to something or reading something and realizing, oh my God, that's why I do that thing. Like, that's so helpful for me to understand why I'm doing it and what's motivating it, because then it helps me, figure out how to find a solution to it. So yeah, those are kind of like my 3 book recommendations.
Of
Otherwise, I highly recommend tuning into my podcast.
course. Why don't you tell us now, where can we find you?
So you can find me on the podcast is on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all of the places that you like to listen to your podcast, Google Podcasts. I have my website, which is mihisorensen.com, and that has all the links to the podcast as well as some free downloadables that I have for habit tracking and planning. And I am hoping to get a little bit more of that out in the next few months. So keep an eye out. Otherwise, I am on Instagram at Mihi Sorensen and TikTok at Mihi Sorensen as well.
All right, I love it. I love today. I think it's been
Me
super
too.
useful to just kind of remind ourselves that actually living on the edge of burnout is not the way forward. Like, we need to handle bad days like a bad bitch. Love
Yes.
that. Maintaining
Yes.
some boundaries without hurting our loved ones. And also, we talked about some good sort of rest habits and opportunities to take a break. And 3 books, never heard of before. So I love that.
Good.
The links to those are in the show notes. All right, Mihi, thank you. I appreciate your time today. It's been really great.
Thank you for having me. It's been awesome. Thank you, Larissa.